Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Something Super Spiritual. I am your host, Jeffrey Peck, and I have one of our old friends back with us again today, the beautiful Ann Théato. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, Jeff. Thank you very much for inviting me back.
Thank you. You have had an incredibly challenging year,
Yes.
and watching you fare through it, your ups and downs, posting really beautiful posts on your social media, really vulnerable, very truthful, really authentic, getting through it the way you did. And I'm so grateful that you're here to have this conversation with everybody, because what you went through this year with your mother passing, leading up to it, the challenges leading up to it when you're traveling back and forth to Ireland and all of that, where you're
Yeah.
literally grieving her passing before she's gone, because you're watching, you're witnessing it.
Yes, that's
And
right.
and having this conversation is so meaningful, because obviously with the work that you and I do
Yeah.
for others, helping others recognize the continuity of life and the reality in it. And you having this awareness, this conscious knowing, but yet going through it so deeply the way that you did. So yeah, I want to talk about all that for everybody.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to talk about any aspect, especially if it's going to help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start with telling us a little bit about your mother and what was happening with her and your relationship, and then what led to, her decline.
Yeah, Jeff. So my mother's name is Mary. I used to call her Mavis. It was a pet name. I don't know why I called her Mavis. I just did. And Mavis, she lived in Ireland in County Tipperary in a small town called Nina. And she was 90 years old when she passed away. So 28 years ago, she moved from the UK, where I was brought up with her and my father. She moved with my dad to Ireland, which is her country of birth, and Nina was her hometown. So she moved back to her hometown. And my father, who is English, my mother's Irish, my father's English, he was quite happy to go back because he was retiring and he had always wanted to buy a little boat for himself. And so that's what he did. And he had this tiny little boat called Bobo. It was blue and white, and he used to sail it on the loch there as often as he possibly could. And quite often he would go up the River Shannon in this boat just to get away from my mum, frankly. so, um, and she used to love it when he'd gone because then she could have peace and quiet as well. I mean, they'd been married forever, so it
Sure.
worked well. So anyway, my father passed away 10 years ago or so. He got a cancer of the prostate, which wasn't found in time. Cancer of the prostate is very, very treatable. So if anybody's listening, do go and get yourself checked.
Hmm.
It's the most treatable thing. But unfortunately, my father hadn't realized. So it spread to his bones, and that led to his demise,
Oh,
unfortunately. Poor man. And then my mother was left on her own for the following 10, 11 years. Yeah, so she lived by herself and quite happily so. I mean, obviously, she grieved the death of my father for a while, but then she lived quite happily on her own. She's a very independent lady. Um, and fiercely independent, so independent that I could not wedge any home help through her door at all. And that led to a lot of difficulties, I can
oh,
assure you.
sure.
Yeah. So she got dementia. That's the thing that happened to her. And I think the dementia I think we all get very forgetful as we get older, and I'm sure we all get it to some degree or other. But with my mum, she used to go swimming every almost every day. She would walk 2 miles to the swimming pool and 2 miles back. It might have been a mile. Anyway, it was a long way. Off she walked with her little backpack and her swimsuit and stuff. She'd swim all the lengths that she could. She was a very, very good swimmer, had cups for swimming from since when she was a child. And then she would walk all the way home again. And my father often used to say, I'll give you a lift down to the swimming pool when he was alive. And she used to say, Sure, what will I do when you're gone and I won't be able to I'll be lazy then. I won't be able to get myself to the pool. I'll carry on walking. You're all right. So she carried on walking to the pool. And that was all great. And then COVID came. And this is where I think the dementia started to kick in.
Mm.
So COVID came. And of course, all people in all countries were locked in, locked away from those social networks and the people. And of course, in Ireland, it's one of the most sociable places you could ever go. People are always dropping around for cups of tea, a piece of cake, chit chat, gossip, just going to the shop. But my mother wasn't allowed to do anything. She's just stuck in this house by herself. And it would drive anybody crazy. I mean, it drove me crackers in London.
Yeah.
I'm sure it drove you crackers when
Mhm.
COVID was here. And lots of people listening, we all know that penned up feeling.
Yeah.
But for the lady who used to swim, so when COVID was finished and lockdown finally disappeared, she'd sort of lost confidence in going swimming a little bit. She would never admit it, but she would just say she wasn't in the mood to go. And she'd sort of lost that, which was a real shame. And yeah, so then she got paranoid delusions. So she thought that there were two women living in her house with her, uh, and she could hear them. And sometimes she could see them like shadowy figures. And I said to her, Mum, do you think you might be seeing or hearing spirit people? And you know what she said?
Mm.
Jeez, do you think I'm mad? Of course not. I was like, okay then.
Okay.
So I was shot down out of the sky at that point. But yeah, so that was really sad because she used to have a bedroom with my father, and of course he wasn't there, he's dead, but she felt that these two women had moved into that room. So then she decided to move along what she called the corridor. So I don't know where she thought she was living, but she knew it was her house, but somehow she knew that other people lived there as well because she could hear a man in the other bedroom and these two other women. And then what happened was my mother was paranoid all her life anyway about people stealing from you. So she would always encourage us to hold on to your purse if you're out in a crowd, zip it up, hold it this way, put your purse handbag over diagonally across your shirt, hold it close to your chest, things like that. I mean, sensible advice to give to your children.
Sure.
But as she got older, she was paranoid about that still. And she used to hide her things in the evening. So she would hide a little pink iPad that she had. She'd hide the purse. She'd hide this and that. And then, of course, in the morning, she's forgotten that she's
Oh,
hidden it.
sure.
But then somebody's broken into my house. You'll have to come here. You'll have to come. So, you get there and you find her things. And then she's like, I knew that was there. Sure, I knew that was there all the time. So, and it just got worse and it got worse and it got worse.
The first time you went there, after that, did you believe her the first time? Like, oh, maybe somebody did get in there, or had you figured it out by then that she was probably just forgetting where
Well, it
she
was
put it?
it was really interesting because at that very time, and I remember it very distinctly because my mother had a brother who she loved and adored, who was also in his 80s, and I'd been looking out for him, and I sat with him while he was dying in the April. So my mother died all the way around. She lived another 11 months after this, but it was April. And I was organizing my uncle was called Desmond, Uncle Des. So I was organizing Desi's funeral, and there weren't going to be that many people at it, but I'd got the a bit what do you call it, a eulogy written,
Oh, yeah.
and sorted out the funeral. I had to sack the priest on that funeral. If you've ever fired a priest before, that was funny. That's another story. But anyway, it was all going on, and I knew that it was only going to be me, my son Jacob, my daughter Jacoa, and my brother Theo that would be in attendance at that funeral because all his friends had died. And I was organizing all that. And then I got this phone call, and it was Easter Saturday. And it was one of her friends who'd gone round and said, your mother thinks she's lost something and you really need to get here. And I said, do I really need to get there? It's Easter weekend, or do you think she'll be all right to wait? Because I was going to fly out on the Wednesday, I think the following week.
Mhm.
You better come now. So Easter Sunday, I had to fly out. Can you imagine the price of a flight to Ireland on the most holy day
Oh
of
boy.
the Catholic year?
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and fly out to Ireland. And that meant I couldn't attend my uncle's funeral because I had to go to her aid. And of
Oh, of
course, you have to be with
course.
the living.
Yes.
So I left my brother to deal with that funeral and attend that, which was very sad. I couldn't go to that one. Um, and I flew over to see what was going on. And what had happened was she'd mislaid her handbag. And so I called the police. I'd already called the police the night before from England and said, look, you need to go round. And my mother was saying, don't send the police round here. The neighbours will be looking out the window wondering what the hell the police are doing outside. And that'll flag it up to everybody that I'm on my own. You're not to send the police. You're not to send them. Oh, God. Oh my goodness. So of course I did send the police and I asked them to park around the corner or go in an unmarked car or something, and they interviewed her and they just let us know that they didn't think anything had been stolen and they were satisfied that everything was fine. After that, we put cameras in the house as well so we could watch her. And the cameras were two-way, so we could speak to her as well. So we could watch her. But it was frightening, Jeff. We'd watch the cameras from England and we'd watch her get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. She's teetering at the top of the stairs
Oh,
with her little wobbly legs and her little nightdress, holding onto the wall in the dark. And I'm just thinking, she's going to
oh,
go, she's going to fall. And no, she'd make it into that bathroom. She'd make it out again back to bed. Yeah, so I was able to find a lot of the stuff. If I was there, I could find all her stuff, and give it back to her. But sometimes she's like a ninja, Jeff. You give her €20. She's I want some money to go to the shop. Okay, give her €20. And literally 30 seconds later, can I have some money to go to the shop? I said, I've just given it to you. No, you didn't. I said, I did. I just gave it to you. I saw you put it in your purse. Well, it's not there now. I said, have a look. And it wouldn't be there.
oh my
It
God.
wouldn't be anywhere that you could see. She'd squirreled it away. She'd put it under the tablecloth, under the fruit bowl, under the tablecloth. She's like, it would take you 3 days to find the 20 quid that you'd just given her. So
Sure.
it was really, I mean, it was comical, in some ways very funny, but
Yes.
and dreadfully sad, but mostly incredibly frustrating for her
Oh yeah.
because she was so independent. She hated asking anybody to help, as I think we all are quite independent
Mhm.
people, aren't we?
Yep.
Wouldn't really want people coming around to help us.
Yep.
Yeah, and but very frustrating for us watching in the UK. It was desperately sad. Yeah.
It's dementia is, I experienced it once. I took care of an older couple for 10 years, managed their lives and their houses and their people and then became closer and closer the older they got as they started to decline. And it was the dementia, it was pre-dementia, then pure dementia. And oh yeah, I mean, there are times during that period where frustrating is like, what's the bigger word than frustrating? When you just like want to pull your hair out, but you can't react. You can't show any like reaction, frustration. You got to be as calm as possible.
Got to be
There are times,
super calm.
oh yeah, and there are times when they do such hilarious things. Like and early on, she would laugh at herself. And she'd be like, "Oh, that was silly or that was funny," and we'd have a good laugh about it
Yeah.
until it got a little bit deeper, and then it started to affect her mind in a way where it really hit her mood, and she went from being pretty, I mean, pretty relaxed and smiley and comfortable to be around to angry. You know what I mean? Where it
Right.
was just went pure anger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was, oh gosh, that was so hard to experience. Um
Yeah.
we we doing the work that you and I do when we have loved ones come through that experience dementia. Um the messages that are so helpful for our sitters, where they struggled so hard watching their loved one just slowly disappear. And
Mm.
they struggled so hard, maybe with abuse, as they're living with this mother or father who suddenly isn't themselves anymore, and they're just angry and they're upset, and as we know, we hurt the ones closest to us, right?
Yep.
And so they struggle through that experience of feeling that abuse and feeling like they're not doing enough, or they're not enough, or they're doing things wrong, or how can I make this better? And it's such a difficult disease
Yeah,
for for everybody, I mean, obviously for the person who has it, but for
yeah.
everybody involved, it's so hard.
It's really, really hard. Yeah.
Mm.
And that patience is it's so exhausting.
Oh,
Listening to somebody say the same thing again and again and again, and you're repeating everything again and again, and you're having the same conversations on loop all the time. Um, I just found that bit it taught me to be calm. It taught me to be really patient.
yeah.
Uh, and that was okay. I didn't find that so difficult. I found that all right. I didn't mind repeating things. Um, but then we'd hide money around the house for her. That's another thing. So initially we'd hide um my mother wasn't really good with a bank card. She's old school. So she liked cash in her purse. And so we would hide 100 euros in a purse, and we'd have a few of these purses around the house. Then she'd just gather them all up in scarves of a night time and bury them under her bed, and she'd have no money at all, ever. So then we reduced the amount of money. I think we had one purse hidden, or two purses, because me and my brother were flying out every month. So we thought, well,
Mhm.
that will do her for the month. But of course, it became 10 purses with 20 euros in it instead of two purses with 100 euros, because she'd call up, I haven't got any money. I need money. She was panicking about it because she never liked to be without money or being able to pay her way.
Sure.
So we'd say, go to the coal scuttle or go to the drawer in the living room and you'll find. And when she found that purse, Jeff, oh, this is going to make me feel a bit sad. But when she found those purses, the joy, she's like a young girl. Oh my gosh, Annie, I'm so delighted. I can't tell you how pleased I am to have this money. Oh, you have saved my life. Thank you so much. And yeah, it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. In the end, it just became impossible to say, go to the coal scuttle or go to the cupboard, because she didn't know what you meant. Then we tried everything, Jeff. We had these Apple tags, so you could put them on your purse,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
on a zip or so we had one on her handbag because she was always losing out, one on her actual purse, one on her, there was a pouch that she wears on a belt round her waist. Over here, we call those a bum bag, but maybe you call them a fanny pouch or
Yeah, oh,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that over
Yep.
in America. Yeah,
Yep.
so she had one of those. It was on there. And what would happen is if she lost something, there was a tracker to find it, which we kept by the telephone in the front hall. So we just used to say, press button A on the tracker, and you'll be able to find your handbag, your purse, and it worked brilliantly for about 3 months, 4 months. Brilliant. Then she didn't know what the tracker was. She couldn't
Um,
understand what the tracker was, or she tried to make a phone call on the tracker, or she'd leave the tracker not in the by the telephone where you can find it. She'd hide the tracker.
yeah.
It's just got crazy, absolutely mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, we tried all sorts of different things to try to manage the situation as best we could. Um, but it was impossible. So I would go every month, and so would my brother, but we crossed over our visits. So she had a visit from one of us every 2 weeks.
Yes. Brilliant.
Yeah, so that worked well for a while, but she needed more and more visits. And yeah, it was it was difficult. I couldn't do my classes. I couldn't teach my classes, my development circle, my any classes I was doing. They all had to be shelved. I couldn't um I couldn't plan anything because I didn't know how long she had left.
Yeah.
Oh, she also had cancer as well. She had cancer of the breast, which had never, well, it wasn't diagnosed for a long, long time. She never went to the doctor. Now, there's another thing. She never went to the doctor in all of her days. Okay, I think she went twice. So when she actually ended up in hospital 6 weeks before she died, they had never met a 90-year-old who had no medical records. She had never taken any medicine and she'd never had, operations or anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
unusual. I mean, that's in
Really
today's day and
unusual.
age, that is really unusual. Wow.
Yeah. So she had this lump in her breast and it was getting bigger and bigger. And I said to her, that's going to finish you off if you don't get something done about it. And she said, Annie, I am 88 years old. What am I going to do? Am I going to sit and watch a drip of, whatever it is,
Chemo.
chemotherapy or
Hmm.
leukemia? Yeah. Going into my veins for the last 2 years of my life? I don't think so. No,
Yeah.
leave it alone. So I said, well, you're right. You're absolutely right. And of course, it spread to her bones, and that is what started her demise.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think we don't really recognize that breast cancer can is something that in that age bracket that we would think about. And my great grandmother had breast cancer and had something removed, I think, when she was 94.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, my 94 and 90s. I mean, she was way up there. And we were like, holy cow, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very real. So, so the cancer is what took her.
Yeah, the cancer is what took her because the um I flew over. There were so many emergency visits flying
Yes,
over,
there
so I don't know
was.
what
I
I
remember.
don't know which emergency this was. But oh, I know what it was. We managed to get one lady round. Um, so it was a home help who called me. Um, but other than that home help, I don't know how we managed to get my mum to accept her into the house. I think we were cunning about that. But everybody else, I was calling all the help teams that I possibly could, Alzheimer's, dementia people. I was calling a doctor in Ireland. I was calling all these different services, and there was quite a lot available actually. But because my mother said, no, I don't want any help, they said she's still got autonomy to make her own decisions. And I said, she's vulnerable. She's teetering at the top. You don't understand how vulnerable she is. Well, if she doesn't want help, we can't force it on her. And I said, what if somebody hasn't got capacity in the mind? Well, she has got capacity because she can say no.
Oh,
So,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so I sent so many people, and all the nurses would go to the door because we just wanted someone to call in on her to find her things in the morning and would give her lipstick because her lipstick and her eyebrow pencils were like our gold.
Yeah, yeah.
To her, that's what she wanted, and her beautiful glittery brooches. But of course, all of those things were stolen by the two women who lived upstairs, e.g., my mother hiding them. And
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I had 20 eyebrow pencils hidden around the house, all the lipsticks, but you'd give her a week, she'd gather them all up and then she'd hide the whole lot. So it's just, anyway, the home help phoned and said, look, Mary is in pain and I can't get her to do anything about it. She won't go to the doctor. You need to come over. So I got my mum on the phone and I said, what's happened? And she was in a lot of pain actually. Oh, and you won't believe it. You won't believe it. I have such a terrible pain, a pain in my chest, a pain in my back. And I thought, I wonder if she's having a heart attack. So I flew over straight away. I just got the first plane I could get on and got over there. And when I got there, I was quite satisfied that she wasn't having a heart attack. Not that I've ever seen anyone have a heart attack,
Sure.
thankfully. But I believe there's clamminess and this and that and confusion and so she didn't have any of those symptoms. She's quite with it in some ways. But she just had this terrible pain in the center under her shoulder blade. And I said to her, have you pulled a muscle or something? Do it because I know she was reaching up to hide her handbag on all the top shelves.
Oh,
That's
sure.
another thing. She climbed on teetering chairs and she'd hide her handbag on the top of the cupboard. Then she'd crash to the floor, the slate floor. I don't know how she survived that one. She did. Oh my days. Anyway, I arrived and I said to her mum, you've got to call the doctor. I won't. I don't want to leave me alone. I just want you here now. You're here now. I'm going to be all right. I said, okay, fine. I said, listen, I said, why don't you take an ibuprofen? Do you have ibuprofen over there in America? It's
Yep,
like
we
a
do. Yep.
anti-inflammatory.
Yep.
Yeah. So I said maybe that might help. Now, bear in mind, my mother doesn't take tablets. She said, okay, I will. Now that'll give you an idea of how ill she was, how much pain she was in. So I gave us ibuprofen and she took that. And she it gave her some mild relief, but not much. So she I put her in bed upstairs and propped up on all these pillows. And she was in bed for 2 or 3 days. She'd come down occasionally, have a cup of tea, and then she'd go back. She was very tired as well. It's another symptom. But the third day, she was in so much pain. I said, Mum, I can't help you. I can't make you better by resting you or giving you these ibuprofen or whatever.
Yeah.
Because she only took the one, she wouldn't take any more than that. You need medical assistance. I was calling my brother, what am I going to do? I can't get her to see the doctor, and the doctor won't come out. The doctor wouldn't come to the house. They don't do house calls. You got to take the patient there. I'm like, I can't take her. She can't walk very well. She's got something wrong with her. You'll have to call the ambulance. I was like, oh no, not the ambulance, please. Had to call an ambulance for my brother, and he never came home. I had to call when he died. I had to call an ambulance for my aunt when she died. And I thought, oh, I can't make this ambulance call. I just can't do it. I just
Sure.
can't do it.
Mhm.
And I was on the phone to my brother saying, oh God, I'm going to cry now. I said, I can't make the call. I can't call the ambulance. Can't do it because then she might not come back.
Yeah.
And he said, Annie, you have to. You have to call the ambulance for her. So I went upstairs again to my mum and I said, look, this is day 3. I can't fix it. Please, can I call an ambulance for you? And the ambulance will get you to hospital where you can be scanned and seen. Well, she was giving out yards about it. But eventually she said, well, I'm in so much pain, I suppose I'll have to. So I said, great. I said, I'll go call the ambulance and you have a rest. So I went downstairs. Jeff, I'm not kidding you. It took me 3 hours after she said yes to even get the courage to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
And I had to phone the ambulance and I said to them, it's 999 or whatever it is in Ireland, 911. I don't know. I can't remember. I've got dementia myself. Anyway, I called the ambulance and the lady on the phone who answered, they answer immediately, don't they, when you call them emergency services. And I said, look, my I explained it's not a massive emergency, but my mother's in a lot of pain. She's 90 years old. I don't know what's wrong with her. And I can't get her to the doctor. So she won't, I don't know. I'm frightened I might do her more damage if I put her in a car and drive her to the hospital than if an ambulance comes. She was so nice. She's like, really, don't worry. I'm really glad you phoned. This is very important. Please stay on the phone with me and I'll get you some assistance. And I said to her, look, my mother may refuse to get in the ambulance. She's told her she's got paranoid delusions and dementia. I said, but you have to impress upon her when these ambulance people arrive that she has to go with them. She can't not go with them. Don't worry, we're quite used to this sort of situation, she said. And along came the ambulance men, or one man came first in a little pre-ambulance. It was like a car, just a little first assistance or something. So he came in his car and he was so nice. He was just kind. He's chatting away to my mum. He was Irish. They had laugh, they had banter. And then he said, I'm going to call an ambulance. You need to go to hospital. And so the ambulance arrived. And of course, my mother, get her in front of anybody. She's all flirty. She's all sparkly. So, oh, if I'd have known there were going to be 3 strapping men outside my bathroom door, I would have put on my negligee. It was so funny. So they were all laughing, and she was just embarrassed about getting into the ambulance in front of the neighbours because everybody was watching to see what was going
Oh,
on.
sure.
Although they pretended they weren't, but
Yeah.
they were really.
Yeah.
As we do, because we're all fascinated.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so she went off in the ambulance and it was diagnosed that what happened was she'd broken a rib. That's why she was in so much pain. The
Oh,
bone cancer had crumbled her bones away. So,
yeah.
just sitting in a chair, they just were like dust.
Ugh.
That's what had happened. And that's why she was in so much pain. Yet, so stubborn, she wouldn't go to hospital for
Oh my
three
gosh.
days. Well, we got into the accident and emergency place, and she got incredible care in this hospital in Ireland. And everybody was saying, oh, she hasn't gone to Limerick Hospital, has she? I said, yes. Oh no, she'll be on a trolley in the corridor for days. It's terrible there, blah, blah, blah. Well, I tell you what, she got the best care in Limerick Hospital. It was
Be-
absolutely amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And we were in accident emergency, and there was quite a few demented people. And there was a lady next to her who kept shouting out, "Where's me shtick? Where's me shtick?" My mother was like, "If I find that shtick, I'm going to stick it up her." I won't say on your podcast, but yeah. So we'd laughing, just laughing about it so much. Yeah. So then she was diagnosed with broken ribs, which had gone up through her spine. I think she had a skull was breaking up into bits,
Wow.
uh, and then she was sort of in and out of. Well, she was in that hospital for a long time because they couldn't send her home because she needed a care package in place and we just couldn't get that organized. So she had to go temporarily into an old people's home. And that old people's home was a disgrace. I cannot tell you what a disgrace it was. It was called the Lakes in Killaloe, and you are a disgrace, Lakes. That's what I have to say about that. Yeah, the care there was appalling, absolutely appalling. And in the end, my mother had a fall while she was there, as old people do tend to
Yeah.
fall. The fact that my mother had a fall is not the problem of the lakes, it's just to do with my mother's infirmity.
Mhm.
But it was that fall that took her back into hospital. So um but it was very sad because I said to the lakes, because they weren't changing her or anything like that. So I'd get there and she hadn't been changed for 5 days. I'm
Oh
like,
no.
yes, yes, absolutely. And they said she won't let us. I said, she's got dementia. She's an independent woman. She needs a shower and
Yeah.
she needs to be freshened up. I was going quite cross, quite mad about it.
Oh,
So anyways, so that all happened. And so she had this fall, and I spoke to the nurse there and I said, she needs to see a doctor. If she's had a fall, she's got bone cancer and her bones are like dust. She needs to see a doctor. No, no, she's fine. I said, how do you know she's fine? Oh, well, we've checked her over. She's only got a red leg. She's fine. I said, I don't think you're hearing me, but I'm in the UK. I couldn't go there. And then eventually I a couple of days went by and I kept checking on her. My brother was checking. We were phoning all the time. And then I phoned up and I said, asked what was happening. Oh, we're going to send her to hospital. Her daughter was in this morning. We told her daughter. I said, I'm her daughter. I live in England. You know I live in England. No, no, her daughter was here this morning. I said, I am her only daughter. I was not there. I'm in England. And they told some other person about my mother. And, yeah, it was just,
oh my goodness.
I mean, the stories, everybody, I'm sure a lot of people who've had parents in care homes have experienced things like this, but it adds to the sadness of it all. All
Oh.
I wanted to do, Jeff, actually, was be able to go into a kitchen and make a cup of tea with my mother.
Mhm.
Because before she'd gone into the hospital, she might have had paranoid delusions and dementia, but she was well able to fill a hot water bottle for me to put into my bed. She was well able to make cups of tea and walk out to the shops and stuff. So for her not to be able to make a cup of tea, it was really sad. And I said to them, can I just take my mother into a kitchen? I'll make the tea. No, 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 you can't do that. Health and safety, will bring you tea. I said, but I don't like the tea you're bringing me. It's full of milk and it's half cold. I want to make a cup of tea. No, 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 no. No, no, you can't do that. So everything's taken away from you. It was awful experiencing all of those horrible things. And anyway, she went into the hospital and I got a phone call to say, even that last phone call, the nurse said, I'm going to call her doctor and see if I should send her to hospital because she's losing consciousness. I said, I really think you ought to call an ambulance now. Oh, well, I'll just check that with her doctor first. And of course, her doctor said you should have sent her to hospital
Oh,
4 days ago and she had the fall.
seriously.
Anyway, you can't manage that sort of thing from a distance.
Yeah.
And you can't manage your temper properly either when you're at that height of um pre-grief or grieving, as you so rightly said, when you watching someone die.
Yeah.
So I had to keep getting my brother to make the phone calls to the care home because I could not keep a civil tongue in my head. And so that was fine. So by the time I arrived, um so I flew over and she'd gone back into Limerick Hospital. We just got her a place in a really nice care home in her hometown. It had just been offered to her, so she was about to move in there, but it didn't come up in time, unfortunately. Um, but I flew to Ireland on what we call the red eye flight in the morning. That first out flight, 6 o'clock.
Yep.
And I got there, and when I got there, I'd hired a car, and I went up to collect the car, and they said you can't hire this car because you need to have £3,000 on your credit card in available, and you've only got 1,500 available. I said, I only use my card for hiring cars, so it should be all available. But the car I'd hired on the previous visit, they hadn't paid me back the 1,500 they took
Oh,
credit card.
yeah.
So I couldn't. So I was standing there saying, my mother is dying. I need this car. You can't give it to you without the credit on the credit card. So all that stuff is going on at the same time. So I don't know what I did in the end. I think I just took some money out of a savings account and gave them 1,500 quid. I'm like, what is going on? Got in this car, didn't even check it over, drove to the hospital. When I got out of the car, the wing mirror's missing. It's like, what? Oh no. Am I going to be liable for a missing wing mirror? Um, no, I got out, went into the hospital, and she was in a little side ward. And in Limerick Hospital, they have a beautiful symbol that they put on the door. It's a spiral, and it's an old Gaelic symbol, and it goes on to the doors of patients who are dying. It's on the bed sheets of the patients that are in those last dying phases. And it's a symbol. So everybody who sees that symbol knows to be very respectful around that
Oh,
family
yeah.
and very respectful around that person. And that was really beautiful. I think it was a really beautiful
That
thing.
is really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, it was really nice, Jeff. But also, it was a bit like hanging a sign on the door to say you got the plague. Like,
Oh, sure.
oh my God, we've got the sign. This is definitely happening. The sign has arrived on the door. Oh. And when I got there, my mum, um, she knew I was there because she was just about able to speak. She'd gone in that morning. She was just about speaking. She said two things to me on her last breaths, and those were, I'm dying, I'm dying. And I feel so bad, or I feel so sick, or I feel so bad, or something like that. And I said, Mum, I'm here now. Yes, you are dying, but I am here, and we're going to make it a beautiful experience. So don't worry. I said, you just let go and let everybody take care of you. And I'm going to be right with you. And I just kept talking to her like that, and she calmed down a little bit, which was really nice. Um, and I sat with her for 4 days and 4 nights. I sat with her. That's how long it took from when she lost consciousness to when she passed away. So that was a long time.
It is.
Yeah, it was a long time to sit in that room. And I wanted her to go into the hospice, but the hospital were a bit funny about that. They wouldn't let her go into the hospice, which was a shame. But the room where I sat with her was very peaceful and quiet, and it had a door that closed so you could close out the noise of the hospital. And um and there were blinds on the window so people couldn't look in. So it was peaceful in there. And also the nursing staff was so kind. They'd bring me little sandwiches and cups of tea and things like that, buns, and you were
Oh,
well fed in there, well looked
sweet.
after. Yeah, it was
Very sweet.
nice. Yeah, and then just sitting there with my mum while she was just heavily unconscious, really. And they had her on a oxygen, a little oxygen thing going in through her nose. And she'd also got cellulitis in her leg. So her whole leg had swollen up with liquid
Yeah.
and was ulcerating and things like that. So she would have been in an awful lot of pain with the rib and the breast cancer and this thing. And yeah, so she was in a really bad way. And they didn't even give her any pain relief at that point. And I was on the phone to my brother. We were constantly on the phone to each other. And my brother in Australia, he was, he's in bits. And I was on the phone to him trying to keep him updated as to what was going on as well. So the three of us were sort of chatting a lot. And I ended up saying to the nurses, look, if my mother wakes up all of a sudden, she's going to be in pain. So even though she's unconscious, don't you think you ought to give her something to keep her sedated, make sure
Yeah.
she doesn't? So they did that. So the morphine goes in. Once the morphine goes in, that's pretty much you're pretty heavily
Oh,
sedated
yeah.
then, aren't you, Jeff?
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was that. And eventually I said to them, look, there's really no need for her to have that oxygen on either, because what are you doing? Why are you keeping her alive when she wants to leave?
Hmm.
And they just said, well, it was just to keep her comfortable. And I said, okay. So they left that in for a bit. And then I think on the last day, I said, look, just take it out. I think she'd be more comfortable just to not have anything attached to her. So that's what they did. And but there was nowhere for me to sleep or rest. There were three chairs in a row, but they all had arms, so
Yes.
you couldn't lie down on them. And they bought me a little blanket, but it was very cold at night time. And then this girl came in on the second day I was there. She was so nice. Her name was Grace, and
Oh,
she was yeah, she was so lovely. She said, "Have you had a shower?" And I said, "No." She said, "Would you like to have a shower?" I said, "Yes, I would. I got off the plane yesterday and I'd love to freshen up." Um, she said, "I'll watch over your mum while you go and have a shower." She took me to the staff shower. She said, "Don't tell anyone." She said, I can't give you a towel." I said, "That's okay." She brought me some bed sheets from the linen cupboard to dry myself off on. She said, "And I don't have any soap." I said, "Oh, well, I don't have any soap either," because I'd bought my overnight bag, but all the toiletries are at my mum's house. I hadn't actually gone to my mum's house to get
oh,
the.
yeah.
So I just freshened up, and that act of kindness, I'll never forget Grace in Limerick Hospital, if you're
Never.
listening to this. I just thought she was beautiful. I did say, "You are amazing, Grace." And then I laughed, saying, "Oh, amazing, Grace." I bet you've heard that so many times. It's not funny. You
Yes.
agreed. But she was a beautiful person, just to see the distress and to hold that space. And,
Oh,
you know, it's little touches like that when people are kind.
yeah.
That's what makes you sort of upset, that people recognize the grief and just hold space for it. And that is so touching and
Yes.
well, you don't forget things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I did my best to hold her hand through the nights and listen to her breathing and it was lovely just lying there at night time. Very uncomfortable. That wasn't lovely. But I'd lie there and I'd hold her hand in mine and I'd talk to her a little bit about my childhood and little memories and things like that. And I'd just listen to her breathing. And it was really lovely, Jeff, because it was, I thought to myself, gosh, when I was a baby inside her womb, her breathing would have been the first thing I would have been listening
Oh,
to. Yeah. And it's the very last thing I'm listening to as well as she leaves the world. So there's something touching about that, but something sacred about
yes.
that. Beautiful and
Hmm.
sacred. That was really lovely. And I was glad to. have an opportunity um to listen to that for 3 whole nights, just me and my mum, just the two of us together,
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh,
Yeah.
it
And
is.
then and then we partied, Jeff, me and my mum. So on day 2, it was quite distressing. There were family members coming in, and I had phoned my brother saying, please don't ask them not to come anymore. This is not their time now. This is my time and mum's time. And mum would have been mortified. She didn't want anybody to see her in that
Oh, sure.
condition. And I made that phone call especially, but it was not listened to, and they would come in. And I found that really difficult. But
Hmm.
I also understood I don't have the monopoly over my mother. My mother belongs and belongs to anybody, but she's friends with many people and she's got other family members, and it's not just me who's grieving her. So one has to accede to these things. Um, but but it was quite distressing because on day 2, she had begun to, after being very, very silent and me listening to her breathing, she'd begun to bubble in the lungs. And then she gave this cough, which kind of alarmed me a bit. I was like, oh my gosh. And then she started to cough, and all this black liquid came out of her mouth. It's the dying process. This is what happens.
Sure.
I was, it's not that I wasn't unprepared, because I know what happens when people die, all sorts of things. That was quite mild compared to what can happen. It's just that from the silence to that suddenly happening, and it was quite alarming to see. And I just ran out to the nurse's station saying, "Help, help, help my mother, help my mother." And I couldn't say, "Help, help, my mother's dying," because she was dying.
Yes,
What can you
yes.
say? So it was kind of comical, really, but it was but alarming. So they came in and they sorted her out and changed her clothes and things. And it was after that I said to the family, "Don't come in," but they did. And anyway, the priest came in and gave her the last rites. Have you ever been with anyone, Jeff, while they've had the last rites
No,
issued?
no.
We've all heard about it, haven't we?
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
last rites.
Yep.
And I've never had that either. But he came in and he was very nice, this priest. And he was very funny because a couple of weeks previously, me and my mum had been chatting away to this priest. He was so nice, and we'd had a laugh about dancing in Cricklewood, which is where I live in London. There used to be a nightclub there years ago. My mother used to dance there. It was called the Galty Moor in Cricklewood. And there's a song um, about the Galty Moor in Cricklewood. I asked her for a dance and she said she would. And so we'd been
Oh,
talking to the priest about that. Yeah. And that was a nice shit. And so he came in to give the last rites. And it was nice because I felt I knew him a tiny bit. He wasn't a stranger priest. It was a priest I kind of had got to know a couple of days ago or a couple of weeks. And he anointed her forehead with this special oil, and I think her breastbone as well. And we said the rosary over her. So he had his rosary beads. I think we said a decade of the rosary. And my uncle and my mother's sister were there as well. And I just was fascinated by this ritual of the last rites, and what it meant to my uncle and my aunt, who are Irish, strong Irish Catholics. And they were crying, and the priest was muttering the words, and I was just like standing there going, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm in a movie set. This is so strange."
yeah, yeah.
And I said the words as best I could, and mopped a few tears away. And then the priest said a couple of other prayers, and then off he went. And that was sort of it. And my aunt and uncle left, and then it was just me and my mum. And that was a really sad day, the day she got the last rites, because I'm thinking, right, she had the last rites now. It's got to be any minute, right? She's going to die any minute. And my brother Theo, who is Golden Buttocks, that's what we call him, because he was her favourite son. And he couldn't get there at the time. He had something, he just couldn't get there for personal reasons. But he did manage to come in on the last day. She held on for him until the last day. But the day before, when I was still with her by myself, I said, right, come on, mum, enough of this misery. Let's get you ready to meet my dad and get you ready to meet my brother Paul. That was her son who died when he was 57. So I put some music on. Luckily, I'd taken my computer into that room with me. So I had Spotify on. And previous to that, I'd been playing all these beautiful songs like um, monks chanting in a cathedral and some of her favorite hymns and things like that. And then I just thought on this day, oh, it's getting a bit maudlin now. I'm a bit sick of all the maudlinness. I need to lighten the atmosphere. So I put on Buddy Holly and the Crickets because that was one of her favorites, and Bill Haley and the Comets, and played all those. And while I was playing those, I got all the makeup out. I spread it all out on her, over her, on her chest. I said, Mum, I'm going to do your makeup. I'm going to make you look amazing. And so I painted on her eyebrows with one of those eyebrow pencils. I put on her fuchsia pink lipstick because you know what, Jeff? She was never seen dead without her lipstick. And you know what? She wasn't. She literally wasn't. And I put on her blusher and her foundation, and it was such a lovely atmosphere. She had this lovely fuchsia pink silk scarf. I tied it around her at her throat here and put one of her sparkly brooches on it. And she looked amazing. It was such a transformation from this very, very sick lady with cancer and, awful, to this very sick lady with cancer and all the rest of it. But she looked a lot better. So,
Yes.
and she would have been, I tell you what, she would have been so pleased. And she used to love her sparkly bracelets and things. So I put one bracelet on the wrist that was free. The other wrist had drugs going into it, so I couldn't
Yes.
do that. And then I put the other two around the bed, and so the whole bed was all sparkling. So when the doctors and the nurses were coming in, they were like, "Oh my gosh, looks amazing!" I'm like, "I know, doesn't she look great?" So that was a really nice thing to do, and I felt really happy that I did that for her.
Mhm.
So yeah, she looked as best she could under the
Oh,
circumstances. Yeah, it was nice.
oh, darling, what a beautiful account
Mm.
of this harrowing experience.
Yeah, it was terribly harrowing. I think there was one really harrowing experience was it was a build up, a build up, a build up. So it was day three, and it was about 5 o'clock at night. Must have been about 6 o'clock. The tea trolley comes around, you see, and because you're in the room with a special sign, you get a special treatment. So the beautiful people who bring that trolley round will bring you in a cup of tea or some sandwiches, or sometimes they won't. If you've got the door closed, they don't want to disturb because they don't know what's going on inside that room. So you go out and you get your stuff from the tea trolley. But whichever way it happened this day, I'd missed the tea trolley coming around. So I said to the staff at the front count at the nursing station, would you mind awfully getting me a cup of tea? Yes, yes, of course. No, no, they didn't say yes, yes, of course, which is what they normally did. They said, um, wait for the trolley. Well, I've missed the trolley. So I went back. I missed the trolley. Well, there's nothing I can do about it. I said, I need a cup of tea. I'm absolutely gasping. Oh, right. Hold on, I'll bring you one. Nothing. 2 hours went by. I went back out. Look, I know you're really busy, but I absolutely need a cup of tea, or a drink of water or something. Um, so this guy was very abrupt and rude. He said, come with me. So I came with him and I went into there was a staff kitchen. He punched the code in the door and he opened the door of the staff kitchen. Well, Jeff, there was a woman in there at the far end, a member of staff. She started to scream at me. Get out of my kitchen! Get out! What are you doing in here? There's no patients allowed in here. I said, I'm not a patient. Get out! Get out! She was screaming. And I got such a fright after everybody being so kind, and it had this beautiful day, and and that assault with those words just struck me to the core. Well, I have to say, I said something incredibly rude to her, really rude that I can't say on this podcast. And I turned on my heel and I went
Good.
into my mother's room and I closed the door. And I think, Jeff, oh, I'd say I probably cried for about 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sure.
I was sobbing.
Yeah.
It all came out then, this terrible thing that was going on, and that I had no control over, that I couldn't help my mother any more than I already had. I couldn't even get a cup of tea. And just the sadness of it all, really, and the exhaustion just all came out at that point. And I couldn't stop crying. The
Yeah.
nurse came in and sat with me and didn't say anything. See again, someone very kind, knowing that there are no words. There just are no words sometimes.
It's
You just have
true.
to abide with somebody, don't you, when
Yep.
they're in distress,
Yep.
because you can't fix it. And saying things just don't help. But
Mm-mm.
silence really does help sometimes. So she sat with me for a good sort of 10 minutes. And after a while, she just put her hand on the side of my shoulder and just touched it a little bit. And then when she realized I was all right with that, she rubbed my arm and then she took my hand in hers. It was slow. It
Oh,
was, is this okay with you? Without saying it, you know? And yeah, and then she just held my hand and I just said, I'm so sorry. I'm so upset. I'm so upset. She said, I'm not surprised. And, I heard what happened and I'm so sorry. That's not normally what happens here. And you need to stop crying now. And then she started to get a bit strict with me. Um, and I was a bit, it was like a child. I was like a child, Jeff. She got a bit strict and I got a bit cross and petulant. She was being strict with me. And she was saying, now you've got to dry your tears because your mother can hear you. She can hear you crying and she won't want you to be like this. So you better dry your tears. Here's a tissue. I was thinking, oh, I'm not done crying yet. So,
oh,
but it helped. It helped that she
yes.
took control. Like, okay, I've let you had your moment. Now you got to get a grip.
Yep. Yep.
So I got a grip, and then she bought me some tea and a sandwich and things, and that was okay. And then yeah, I was just so tired. So I hadn't slept. I was 3 days without sleep.
Oh, those chairs are so uncomfortable.
I know, really
Mhm.
uncomfortable. And then what happens, Jeff? Day four, in strolls Golden Buttocks. Here he comes. He's arrived on the scene. He said, Annie, he said, I'm going to dine out on this for years. He said, you've sat here for 4 days on those uncomfortable chairs, and I just sail in, and I bet mum passes away in a couple of hours' time, and we'll all go home, and I won't be uncomfortable at all. And I said, I bet you that's what happens. I said, Mum, don't die today, die tomorrow. And of course, she passed away that day, a couple of hours later. But it was nice when he got there and we just had banter with her. We just laughed with her and we talked about
Oh,
funny memories. Obviously, she wasn't responding, but we just had just the greatest laugh and she always liked laughter in the room. So that was really nice and uplifting. Yeah. Um,
it's so
and
beautiful.
that was it. Yeah. So oh yeah, so then her breathing changed. It was about 2 o'clock, just before 2 o'clock, 10 to 2. We Theo, my brother, was on one side and I was on the other side. And her breathing changed sort of imperceptibly to start with. And we both sat up in our chairs and we were like, ooh, what's this? And her breathing started to slow down. And then she'd take a deeper breath and then it would slow down. Whereas before it had been very regular breathing. So we knew, okay, it's coming. So we took hold of her hand each, and Theo had her hand in his, and I had her hand in mine. And we were kissing her on the forehead and we were stroking her face. And we were saying, Mum, you can go, you can fly free. You're going to go and meet Paul and say hello to Auntie Mon and Uncle Peter and give my love to my dad. And you're going to go and it's all going to be beautiful. And it was things like that. And it was so nice. And one of her ears started to go white. You could literally see the blood stop flowing before the breath finished, and the ears started to go white. And of course, being a medium, I'm sitting there thinking, can I see anything? Are there any spirit people here? Is there anything going on? You know what? Couldn't see a thing. I didn't. I was probably too involved. It was she's too close to my heart and my mind, probably, for me to be seeing with my spirit eyes with any accuracy. But yeah, it was beautiful. And so the blood started to drain from her ear, and Thea's like, look at this, look at this. And I said, yeah, look at her hands, look at her hands. And her hands, the nails start to go a little black at the ends, the fingertips. And so you can see the body slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. And she had her rosary beads on her chest as well, which I'd put on there. And yeah, so she literally breathed her last. We just watched her. The breathing got slower, Jeff, and slower and slower And then the last breath came, and she was gone. Ah, off she'd gone. On Spotify, I'd queued up some music for that moment. I honestly, it was like a stage show. I said, Theo, I've got a song for this. He was like, oh, don't be ridiculous. I said, no, I've got a song for this. And I played, it was one of her favorite tunes. It sounds a bit corny now, actually, now I'm going to say it out loud. But actually, at the time, it was really cute, really sweet and moving. It was Nearer My God to Thee. That was one of her favorite songs. And she was such a strong Catholic with that faith. And I thought that was just such a beautiful song to play. So we let that song play in its entirety. And we just sat there with her while that song played. And I was looking up because I was thinking everything I've read about when people pass away, they either stand by their body in spirit form or they float above the body in spirit form. So I was looking all around the room and I was talking to her mum, if you're here or if you're up there in the sky, in the ceiling, I hope you're enjoying, I hope you're well and, thank you for everything you've done for us as a mum and all those sort of things.
Ugh.
And then we went out to the staff and we said, look, our mother's just passed away. Please don't let anybody into this room for the next 30 minutes. Nobody is to come in, no one. And they said, okay. They closed the door. And they let us have that half an hour. Then the doctor came in. He had to confirm the death and do all that stuff. And then he left again. But yeah, so that was really nice. And my sister-in-law had sent some flowers, which were really beautiful. So I picked a flower off and I laid it on her heart, a little pink flower. So there she was in her lipstick and her eyebrow pencil and her beautiful jewelry and her scarf. And I left the flower on her chest. And yeah, and we gathered up our things and we kissed her goodbye. And that was hard, leaving the room when you have to leave and you think, gosh, that's it. I, the next time I see you will be in the funeral home, but I won't. That's it now. We're finished. That's hard. That
Mhm.
bit is really hard. Um, yeah, so we left. Yeah, we left. And that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that.
That's okay. So it's interesting talking about it afterwards. Very moving.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, my mother and I had always had a very difficult relationship, Jeff.
Mhm.
Um, we got on famously until I was about 16, and I had an opinion of my own that differed from hers. That's when we went on a cross path challenge. That's when the relationship became very tricky when I didn't agree with her all the
Oh,
time.
sure.
Um, and that continued. And of course, it was very difficult because I had two children. This is no secret. Everybody who listens to the podcast will know this. I have had two children from two different fathers, two different relationships. I adore my children. And, but because I did that, it was very difficult. My mother wasn't very accepting of that. And, but she was always very cross and always very authoritarian and but also incredibly funny, hilarious. And at the end, she became soft. She became this beautiful, soft, funny person who'd forgotten that she had all this anger. She'd forgotten her anger, Jeff.
Wow. Hmm.
She hadn't remembered that she was cross with this person or that person or me or that. So she was how she always should have been all her life. She could have been that lovely. Amazing. Yeah. So I was delighted to experience that with her
Oh,
for
yeah.
those last 6 weeks, couple of months were brilliant with her. Yeah. Lovely. Really lovely.
Beautiful. So afterwards, you held the service. You managed all of that, and then you took some time off, and we got to watch you on your little trip around the island.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, so we did the funeral service, and in between my mother dying and the funeral, which was about 10 days, quite a long time in Ireland. Usually they try to bury you within 2 or 3 days. Um, but we just couldn't fit it in. Me and my brother just couldn't do it. And everyone in Ireland was a bit shocked. What do you mean the funeral's not for another over here in England, it's really common. You won't bury someone for months. You have to wait forever. They're in a
Yep.
fridge forever. But in Ireland, it's really quick. So they were really shocked that we were gonna wait. But Theo and I couldn't do it. We couldn't fit it into our diaries. Why couldn't I do it? Because I had my what did I have to do? Something for the SNU. It was the Spiritualist National Union. I was doing an exam. Oh, it was my mock exam for my DSNU. That's what it was. And it's only held twice a year, so I couldn't not do it. So I had to fly back after my mother died, do that mock exam, and I had to do a demonstration of mediumship as part of that. Now, interestingly, there were seven of us, seven mediums who were demonstrating. And the gentleman who got up to demonstrate before it was my turn, fantastic medium called Reese Wynne Davies. Do you know him, Jeff?
I know the name, absolutely.
He's fabulous. He's so fabulous, such a talented medium. What does he do? He brings my mother through.
Oh,
He brings my mother through and starts giving me this message from my mum. I was so blown away because I'm so geared up to demonstrate. I'm like, what? I've got to listen to a message from my mother who died 3 days ago.
oh
What?
my gosh, yes.
So, yes, I can't remember the details of it, unfortunately, but I know it was very, very accurate and really, really good. He got a name, he got this, he got that. It was amazing. Thank you, Reese, for that lovely message. Then he sat down, and then it was my turn to demonstrate. It was almost impossible to demonstrate
Oh,
after that.
seriously.
Oh, anyway, I did it. It was fine. So I had to do that. Then I had to fly back again for the funeral. And of course, when I go to hire the car, what happens? Oh, you can't hire the car. We've only got 1,500 quid. What? What do you mean? I'm going to my mother's funeral. Oh, honestly, it was just horrendous. And yeah, so that was all great and gave her a great send off. And you know what? I carried her coffin.
You did.
Yeah, I carried a coffin. Me and my brother in the front. My two children were there as well, and two other members of our family were there too, at the back. Um, I don't think it's very common for women to carry a coffin, and I think all women listening to this, you need to step up, ladies, and carry those coffins for your members of your family. It was one of the most sacred things I could ever have done. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever done as well. Stand there, stand for her, carry her. My two children, it helped because they're both very tall, so they had the weight of it on them, so that was all right. And I was in the front, so it, never carry it very far. Just carried it as far as the hearse that was waiting outside. But that was really important to me. And when we got to the graveyard, she was buried, not cremated. And when we got to the graveyard, uh, I was one of the people, the four people that lowered her down on the rope, coffin lowering rope,
Yep,
whatever it's
yep.
called. Yeah, and just paying that rope out as the coffin went. The funeral director was great, Philly Ryan. He did Shane McGowan's funeral actually. Philly Ryan is beautiful. He's a friend of our family. He's really nice. So if you want a good funeral in Ireland, go to Philly Ryan and Nina. You get a good send off. But he was, showing me how to lower the rope down into the ground, and I knew what she was laid out in, Jeff, in this beautiful green jumper with a sparkly necklace and this lovely green scarf. And as I lowered the coffin down, I could see her in there. And it was something really lovely about that. I just had done everything I possibly could for her to the last minute till we just said goodbye there, and even straightening up the coffin a little bit so it wasn't at a funny, slightly at an angle. It was all nice and straight. So when I go and visit that grave now, which I've been a couple of times, I can see her. I know that I put her in there myself, and it was beautiful and sacred. And I think that's lost to us in funerals, the sacredness of these moments. We hand it over to the funeral director. Someone else can deal with our dead, but we should deal with our dead because it's really healing, something beautiful about it.
I agree. I agree.
Mm.
I haven't had much experience, but yes,
Yeah, good. Well, yes, long may that continue.
yes. But I love ritual. I love ritual, and with that, the intention within ritual and
Yeah.
how it really, really touches you on a level like you were just talking about, like that sacredness
Mm.
of being able to lower the coffin, to be able to walk with her, to oh yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, it was really important. So that was wonderful. Yeah. And then, of course, you have the harrowing task of going through her personal
Oh
things and
boy.
throwing her things away.
Yeah.
So that was really difficult, really hard. Getting rid of all her clothes that she loved. Um, she used to say, I love my jewelry much more than I love my children. And I'll tell you why, because my jewelry doesn't talk back to me. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, and then like you say, so we dealt with the house, that all got it's still being dealt with now, just throwing things away and passing them on to other people as much as possible. And then I went round Ireland in my
Yes.
motorhome. That was the thing,
Yes.
wasn't it, that you were saying?
Yes.
So I drove the wild Atlantic way, and it was wonderful to go to Ireland, Jeff, on a trip that was not a duty visit to see my mother or where some trauma was at the other end of the trip.
Yes.
It was beautiful and it was scary because I bought this massive motorhome. It's 6 foot long and I'd only driven it twice before. And then I suddenly had to drive it all by myself all round Ireland and the narrow, tiny little roads. And if something comes the other way, well, what are you going to do? And that did happen. And it taught me to be brave and be courageous and be, again, patient. If someone comes and you're in their way or they're in your way, you just get out, you talk to the person, you make a plan between the two of you. Who's going to back up? Which way shall we do this? And then it's all dealt with. If you keep calm and nobody shouts, everything gets dealt with easily. And it was beautiful. It was really lovely and great fun. There was some wonderful bands that we saw the traditional Irish music, in and some lovely Guinness. Best pint of Guinness I had was on the Aran Islands. So I did a day trip there. And also I was doing some wild swimming in the Atlantic Ocean. And I tell you what, I have never, ever, ever felt so cold in my life. That
Yeah.
ocean is like ice, ice, ice cold. So much it would take your breath away. You can't breathe when you
Oh,
get in. You have to breathe, do your breathing exercises for 3 or 4 minutes till you're adjusted and then you can swim in it. But I did that as well. So yeah, it was great. We'd have a sauna right by the ocean and then go straight into the sea. It
oh,
was
okay.
brilliant.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
really
fun. That's
brilliant.
cool. It's kind of like a cold plunge, our people are
Cold,
jumping in the
very
ice bath.
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Did you
Yeah.
find that time on that little trip to be, well, I was going to ask healing, but I mean, did you experience both like the sobs, the release, and then the exhale, and then you know what I mean? How we go up and down through grief.
Yeah, that trip was healing in that the scenery and the vistas were so beautiful to look at. It would I would be driving along and my jaw would drop. Literally, my mouth would open like, what?
Wow.
Oh, what is this? Oh my gosh, you just can't believe the beauty of it. Unbelievably beautiful. So that was very healing. Um, it was wonderful to be with my little dog, Phelan. It's an Irish name, actually. Phelan means little wolf in Gaelic.
Oh,
And because I'd spent so much time away from her, so we were together for the whole of that trip for a whole 4 weeks, me and Phelan. So that was really nice that we had each other's company. Um, I did a lot of internal shouting at my mother for various things that I believed that she did wrong in her lifetime to me. and had all these conversations. You did this and you should have done that. And I could hear her talking back to me saying similar things. And I got it all off my chest. And then I was also having lovely conversations with her. Oh, wasn't it funny when we did this, Mum? Wasn't it funny when we did that? So all of that
Yes.
was really part of the grief, I think. You're
Yes.
angry about all the stuff she wasn't to me, and then acknowledging all the beautiful things she was to me. And we can't be all things to all people. We
Yes.
just can't be. We've all got horrible dark sides, awful, horrible dark sides to us. And yeah, so it was very, very healing, except the last 10 days of that trip I had to spend in her house clearing it out. And so the whole trip I knew that that was still ahead of me,
Oh,
still ahead of
sure.
me. So that was hard. Yeah.
So since this, that when was this? Was this May?
So my mother died on the 15th of March.
March. Okay. So you really took this summer and took your time.
Yeah, I had to take time off, Jeff.
You really
I
took your time.
couldn't couldn't work, couldn't
Y-
do readings,
Yep.
couldn't open up my sensitivity,
Yep. And
couldn't do it.
I so appreciate that. I mean, that taking care of yourself, honoring yourself in that way, knowing what you needed.
Yeah, I hadn't realized how tired I was. I was mentally tired,
Oh,
Jeff.
yeah.
And I hadn't realized, I knew I was physically tired. I hadn't realized how emotionally and mentally tired I was. I was probably spiritually tired as well. Everything
Mhm.
was just so depleted.
Mhm.
So much so that shortly after I got back after the funeral and everything, the beard and I went off on our bicycles and we cycled about 4 miles down to this pub. And on the way back, I couldn't cycle a bicycle, not because I'd had too much beer, but because I was so tired, I couldn't actually pedal. And I've never experienced anything like the tiredness. I had
Ooh,
to get off the bike and I just had to push it a little bit at a time. It took ages for me to get home. I was that tired.
that
Yeah,
is exhaustion.
it was
I mean,
exhaustion.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
so here we are at the end of September,
Yeah.
and you're back. You just launched was it for your first show back today? Was it today's the
Oh,
launch?
sweet of you, Jeff. Yes, it was. Psychic Matters, the old podcast,
Yeah.
is back on. It launched today. Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I've just got to tell you, you've been missed tremendously. I've missed you. I've missed our conversations and our little texts, and
Yeah.
I know that the people out there missed you,
Mm.
and it's really wonderful to see you back, and also see this newness about you. This
Mm.
fresh, refreshed sense, and there's this feeling within you that I just can't help but touch on is just this, like, it feels like a higher sense of gratitude to me, like a higher sense of, does that make sense to you? I just feel this bigger sense of gratitude and the experience of it all, the difficulty of it all, but seeing through the difficulty and recognizing how beautiful it all was, even the difficult periods with your mother through life, and processing through all of that after her passing, the
Mm.
anger, the resentment,
Yeah.
screaming at her in your head. I mean, this is just
Yeah.
all so much of part of all of us
Yeah.
and our parents and our siblings and friends. I mean, it's life, it's relationships, right?
Yes, that's right.
And I love how you were able to speak about that so eloquently and clearly about how you felt, and you just rolled with it. And then, so quickly afterwards, are processing through the fun times and the laughter and the giggliness, and yeah, it's just so beautiful. And My point is, I can just see this refresh within you that just seems so much more clear. And
Yeah.
the gratitude, I just feel that within you as well.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Jeff.
how have you seen within you after this period, moving through all of this, how has that changed you, with respect to current relationships, current, with your kids, your spouse, your brothers, your relationship with spirit, even your readings? Like, how have you noticed any difference in your connection? So yeah, speak about that a little bit for us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you for saying that you can see the reset because I feel great now. I feel good.
Mhm.
Of course, that's always going to be part of my experience. And at times, you with grief, you suddenly, oh gosh, and you suddenly feel tearful for strange reasons. But on the whole, I'm absolutely great. And yeah, it was so lovely having my golden buttocked brother with me through that whole experience. Because and my brother in Australia, although he wasn't physically here, he was right on the end of WhatsApp at all times. So I was able to show him mum while she was dying and be with it was lovely. He was part of it really, and that was really nice, and it brought the three of us back together, the banter that we used to have as kids and stuff. And even my brother, Mr. should we call him GB, old golden buttocks, GB, um he Theo, I'd find myself doing things like when we got home to my mum's house after doing something to do with sorting stuff out, I'd just be bundling him into the corner and like pinching him under the legs and things, giving him what we call a camel bite that we used to do as kids. And I'm 60 now and he's 55. He's still mucking about. It was quite funny. So yeah, the banter has been great. That's been really lovely. And yeah, regarding my work, I think it can't help but make you a more sensitive person because I understand. I mean, I do understand grief because I've had a lot of people die now, but I'd forgotten as a medium that when you're giving a message to somebody, it's not necessarily about the dying of that person. It's everything that went before that. So if you have had someone with an illness or if you have had someone with a long-term condition, there's stuff that goes on in families all around that I can now open up my awareness to, that I won't just be stuck on their passing environment. This is what they passed of, and this is what happened, and blah blah blah. You can open up to the relationships they had with their loved one before they passed, and it is interesting. My own children was quite interesting because I've had a massive argument with my son in the last month, and it's upset me so much. I haven't been able to speak about it to anybody really. Uh, and it's all about me as a mother and his perception of me as a mother. And his perception of me as a mother is really valid because it's his perception.
Mm.
My perception of my mother to me is really valid because it's my perception. But
Yes.
we have to look wider than this. What is it in us? What is it in my son that complains about me? Because I think I'm absolutely marvelous as a mother. And what
Yeah.
is it about me that has so much to complain about to my poor mother who did her best?
Yes.
We have to, like you say, this gratitude for everything that we get, everything that we have, no matter whether it's an argument or someone brushes up against us. It's all a teacher for us,
Yes.
and it's always about our own soul's evolvement. What are we learning from this experience?
Yes.
So we have to take time because I could not and still have not been able to press the override button on the argument I've just had with my son, but to be able to come out of the emotion and leave the emotions behind because they're human made and they're torturous. We torture ourselves with our own emotion. My son's not torturing me, I'm doing it to myself. If I can just rise above that and see it for what it really is, it's just a learning experience. And we're learning all the time to be more compassionate, more loving, more patient, more understanding.
Yes.
Mm.
That's it.
So, but
And that's really it. It's such a beautiful awareness to have. It softens everything when we are able to see through that lens of compassion. When we look at our parents above us or our kids below us, and we're looking up the chain, up the
yeah,
level, and we see, how we all have those feelings about our parents, the things that we feel like they could have done differently or better or whatever. Um, and so often in readings, our loved ones are coming through to acknowledge those mistakes, those moments where they could have done better, and should have done better. And and I think there comes through these experiences for sitters who do sit with us and they have these experiences with their loved ones, and the loved ones are acknowledging how they hurt them or dismissed them or made them feel like they weren't enough, and they're acknowledging all this with this apology. um, what comes out of that, this clarity, and the sitter really starts to look at them as the human being that they were, and they see them, their parents, through this clearer lens of compassion, and they start to recognize, what, maybe they really did do the best they could with what they had. Maybe they did. And they start to get softer and they start to get softer and they start to realize that their parents were really humans, and that they learned from their parents,
yeah,
and maybe they learned how to love
yeah,
from parents, that. So yeah, it's just beautiful. It's a full circle moment, and to listen to your experience with your mother is so beautiful. Like, I just feel like I just want to cry right now. It's
oh,
just
bless
so
you.
beautiful.
Yeah,
And yeah, and thank you for sharing. It's just awesome. It's so helpful for so many who've been through this so many times, who are going through this right now.
yeah, yeah. It's tough. I think, the only, well, there's no advice to be given. Every case is different.
Yeah.
Um, the the there's no advice really. I can't think of anything to say other than just keep on holding on. It's every moment is precious with our loved ones, of course it is. And that pressing that override button and looking for that compassion, it's not easy, especially when you've had very, very troubled relationships. And I don't think we can be able to just love everybody and be compassionate to everybody who's, some people do unspeakable things.
Oh, absolutely. Mhm.
But to take yourself away from the pain of reliving it and reliving it and reliving it in your mind and going through your own emotion about it. That's what I'm learning. Stay away from that stuff. It doesn't serve you. It just serves to stir up the muddy waters. You're better off finding something beautiful to look at and distracting yourself with a lovely color of a plant or the sun or the wind, feel the wind, or just distract yourself as often as possible.
Yeah.
Because it will raise our vibration, doesn't it? And that's how we get out of the doldrums. Just raise it by a fraction. By the time, even if it's just looking at this little red book, I love the color red. Let's have a look at this red.
Yeah.
Just focus on the red for a minute. Stop thinking about my mother and the
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the next thing you can do is be grateful for, oh, I'm really grateful that I've got a hand that picks up that book, you know. Just try to, I don't know, try to override the doldrums as much as possible. Yeah, and give yourself time. It's been so important to me, Jeff, to take that time out to come to terms with everything that has happened and to really just not do anything or try and fill it with anything or when I went around Ireland, I thought, oh, I'll take loads of books, I'll take my painting equipment, I'll do this, I'll do that. No, it wasn't possible. All it was possible to do was sit down, make a cup of tea, just observe the person walking past the motorhome. That was it, really. I couldn't think about anything else. And that's really important. And actually, I think I must take some time off every year now to do nothing. We should do nothing. We should take time out. We work too hard and too
Oh,
fast. And that takes us away from our love as well, because we get fractious and we get tired. So, yeah, doing less, being still, I think, is, you always used to read about the monks, the wise man's one who doesn't say very much at all or doesn't use his words and all of that stuff. But it's so true.
yeah,
As we live longer and longer, I just think stillness is the way. And if you can't think of anything to say to anybody, don't say anything.
yeah,
Just just maintain the silence, not because you're in a huff, but
right.
just be calm. The answers will always arrive in good time. Yeah. So I really appreciate being able to talk about this, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me on your
Oh,
beautiful show.
oh, thank you. I appreciate it too. It's just so beautiful. And yeah, I'm so happy that you're back. I just got to say it
I know.
again. I'm so happy that you're back. I
Yeah.
know a lot of my audience is your audience, a lot of your audience is my audience, and
Yeah.
I love the connection between everybody and us. And I just love you to smithereens.
Ah, and I love you too, Jeff, and it's great to be back. So thank you so much. Bless you.
Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.